The federal government introduced new legislation on Tuesday that aims to both strengthen and streamline the immigration process, including new limits on asylum claims, while also cracking down on cross-border fentanyl trafficking. The proposed bill not only addresses several of the border security priorities highlighted by Prime Minister Mark Carney, but also some of the long-standing complaints voiced by U.S. lawmakers, diplomats, and Canadian police organizations.
This morning, I introduced Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act. Among some of the key changes are new powers for border officers to examine goods destined for export, to prevent the transport of illegal goods, such as stolen vehicles. Law enforcement and intelligence agencies will also have some new tools to stop the flow of fentanyl and its precursors. By investing in advanced technology, by supporting our border personnel and law enforcement, we'll be able to better prevent illegal cross-border activity. We will do so while protecting charter rights of Canadians, safeguarding their privacy, and ensuring due process.
Our correspondent Wyattt Sharpe joined us for the latest.
Wyattt, thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you.
Now, how does this act aim to support the border?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of different kind of policy proposals that Immigration Minister Gary Anattasangari is looking to implement. Certainly among them is kind of this idea of decreasing the amount of fentanyl that is pouring in to both Canada, but also the amount that Canada is bringing in to the United States. You've seen kind of that be really one of the key things that Donald Trump has been advocating for over the course of the trade war between the United States and Canada. He says the reason he's putting in place tariffs on Canada is because of the fentanyl. Of course, the numbers suggest that Canada doesn't actually contribute that much to the amount of illicit drugs that are in the United States. But nonetheless, the Immigration Minister, Gary Anattasangari, was actually asked about this yesterday in unveiling this policy, where he denied that they were doing this solely because of that. But certainly the irony is not lost on us.
And what does this do to address the fentanyl issue in Canada and at the borders?
Yeah, I mean, really, it comes down to just what kind of controls now various border agents and customs will have whenever you go to the border. A lot of these kind of changes are being made out to be new kind of monumental changes, if you will. But really, kind of speaking here, most of them are just powers that border agents already have, and that is just being expanded upon. So, for example, now they have the authority to cancel various immigration documents, to suspend immigration documents. Those were all things that these agents have had the power and the authority to do in the past, and certainly they have done. I mean, even just in the past few weeks before this act was introduced, you saw a number of headlines with respect to what border agents were doing with turning away various people at the border entering into the United States. So certainly that's one of them, but also, it really aims to kind of combat this issue of transnational crime and the fact that a lot of these drugs aren't just being originated in Canada, but rather they're being smuggled into Canada and then going south down to the United States. So certainly kind of there's a kind of faceted play here that the government is looking to make. They hope it works out successfully, and they hope that maybe it will kind of help convince Donald Trump to back down.
And so far, what has been the reaction to this new policy?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty new and early days, certainly at this point, because we haven't really seen a lot of the reaction because it hasn't actually gotten a debate in Parliament yet. The reality is whenever a bill or a piece of legislation of this nature gets introduced, oftentimes, the communications teams for all of the parties will kind of scramble to put together a statement. We haven't really seen that yet with respect to the Conservatives, who certainly have been advocating for border security and for more border security. So I think the expectation is that this will be something that they will fall in line with. But, we do kind of have to analyze the kind of little fine details within the bill as well. And just the fact that, if we are unable to kind of create for an environment where we are not putting a bunch of money into this policy, I mean, that might be when the Conservatives decide to not support it. They certainly advocate for fiscal responsibility whenever possible. And so, again, if this becomes a large kind of expenditure, if you will, for the government, this might be something that then the government will have to rethink the Conservative support.
Now, initially, the reason that Donald Trump had implemented tariffs was because of the problems at the borders. Now, do you think with this new policy, this will kind of make Donald Trump remove some of those tariffs or be a little more lenient with them?
I mean, it's a good question. And you saw even after Mexico came out and they kind of just basically made a very small effort, but something that was meaningful to Donald Trump to say that they're going to work on their fentanyl problem. Of course, Mexico imports upwards of 25,000 pounds of fentanyl into the United States, whereas Canada, it's only about 50 to 100 pounds, not to downplay that, but certainly a much smaller number. And so, if Donald Trump took that seriously, he might, be a little more lenient. But again, I mean, it just kind of stems from the fact that a lot of people don't even believe this to be an issue at all. And so if Donald Trump does kind of believe that, fentanyl is a big issue for the United States, specifically coming in from Canada, that might kind of completely change the discourse.
Well, Wyatt, thank you so much for the time today.